So I start every day of my life coming out here to feed my koi fish. I'm pretty proud of them. They're 10 years old this year. I started them in 2011. They're a happy crew. After 10 years of doing this, they recognize me, they know me. When strangers show up, they usually try to hide. Yeah, this is my happy place. Yeah, as soon as you started moving over this way, they started hiding. On the morning of September 11, 2001, I was doing something rather uncharacteristic of myself. I was still in bed and it was after 9 o'clock in the morning. I was having what I considered a personal tragedy. Maybe I was even feeling sorry for myself. And then as I watched the television that morning, drinking coffee in my bed, I saw a plane hit the World Trade Center. At the time, I'd had a contract at the Empire State Building. My close friend now of more than 20 years, Justin Lowe, was at the Empire State Building with one of our bomb detection dogs. We had an extended contract to protect that building from explosive devices. So I thought I might call him just to let him know what was going on, and I called him. He answered the phone. During our conversation, the phone was disconnected. So I thought it was odd, but I also knew that a lot of communication stuff was routed right through the World Trade Center mission. And I also assumed that a lot of people were probably trying to make phone calls due to the incident. As the hour passed, the second building was struck by a second airline. All of us knew that watched that life in America was about to change. And I certainly knew that my life was about to change for a long time. Over the next hour or so, actually several hours, I continued to try and reach out to Justin Lowe. I knew he was in the building, and I knew that that building was also a target. So Justin and I kept calling each other back and forth. The phones kept getting disconnected. At some point, he called me to tell me that the FBI had contacted the Empire State Building and notified them to evacuate the building, that the Empire State Building was likely the next target. Nobody knew what was happening at that point. So Justin called me and asked me, what do I do? I said, well, you're my friend. I entrust you to conduct my business in the most appropriate way. But you and your dog are not going to stop a speeding airplane from taking down that building. So I leave it to you to make the best judgment call on whatever it is that you decide. And you will have my 100% respect and trust on whatever that decision is. I let Justin know that no matter what he decided, that I would make every effort to get down and relieve him at the Empire State Building. All the tunnels, bridges, railroads, subways, all of that was shut down within hours. So it wasn't going to be an easy task to make my way down to New York City. But I gave Justin my word that I would get there as quickly as possible to relieve him. Bravely, he made the choice to stay on until I reached him. So the day after 9/11, I had a most profound experience. My telephone rings and I answer the phone. Is this Mr. Christopher Byrne? Yes. Stand by for the general. This is the United States Pentagon. So a general out of the Pentagon called me and asked me what my capabilities were and how quickly I could put all my bomb detection dog teams in action in New York City. Well, of course, I told them that we would do whatever we could do as quickly as possible. At the time, I was one of the largest bomb dog providers in the private sector in the country. And that was only 3 dogs. I had more dogs than the Connecticut State Police at the time. So we immediately made an agreement, and I got in touch with all my bomb dog handlers and refocused their energies towards New York City. So following every news agency and keeping in touch with the agencies that I was now working with, I learned that a single train was going to leave Stamford, Connecticut and roll directly into Grand Central Station. And I believe that was happening first thing in the morning on September 14th. September 13th was my 10th wedding anniversary. My wife and I wound up sharing a pizza. I spent the evening with my kids and packed a bag for myself, my dog, and dreamed all night long about what the following months held for me. So the following morning, my wife drove me down to the Stamford train station, and I boarded a train. There was only 2 cars, and the cars were packed full of older teenagers and young 20-year-olds. It was probably the eeriest trip on a train in my life. It was nearly silent, aside from sobbing, and it was kids going to look for their parents. It was a difficult way to start that journey, but at the same time, I knew it was a noble journey, that somebody had to be out there protecting the people that are still down there, protecting the workers. And if I had been stuck home not being able to do something, I would have gone stir crazy. So I was particularly satisfied that I had an opportunity to play a role at the World Trade Center recovery mission. If you've ever ridden the train from Stamford into New York City, at a certain point it goes into some tunnels before you get to Grand Central Station. And as soon as we hit those tunnels, there's a distinct smell of smoke. As we traveled closer to Grand Central, the smoke got thicker and heavier. And by the time the doors opened at Grand Central Station, I had a sore throat from it. The doors opened, I walked out of the train, through Grand Central Station, out onto 42nd Street, and all the way down 5th Avenue, walking down the middle of the road, all the way to the Empire State Building. In the moment, it made me think of a silly movie that I'd seen at some point in my probably teenage years. It was a couple of girls that went to a party, and I think they fell asleep in the basement of this party, and when they woke up, there was no people left. And they went around Los Angeles with empty streets and store doors open, and it just kind of reminded me of that movie because it was a very similar feel. It was so odd to be able to walk down the center of 42nd and 5th Avenue and not have a single car pass you. When I arrived at the Empire State Building, the building was literally surrounded by NYPD officers and Justin Lowe standing there out front with his dog, Bengo. So he'd been there 2 or 3 days at that point, and I told him, go home, rest up, get a change of clothes, and get back as soon as you can because there's other stuff that we need to start covering. Within about a month, reaching out to friends and other companies that do what I do, we had about 10 bomb dogs on the ground, bomb dog teams, dogs and handlers, and we were protecting all the support sites of the World Trade Center recovery mission. Federal Plaza, the Family Assistance Center. There was a warehouse over on the East River where every single donation delivery that showed up, nobody asked for it, nobody requested it. There was truck after truck after truck hired by every church, town, and civic group across the country that was loading it up with teddy bears and pillows and blankets and first aid stuff, and anything you could possibly imagine was rolling in. And of course, Homeland Security, FEMA, was concerned that somebody was going to send a truckload of explosives. So every single truck, 24/7 at that location, was inspected by myself or one of my guys. My primary guy at the time was Mike DeBruzzo, who was really my right-hand man at that time. And he basically worked nonstop 5 days in a row, and then he took 2 days off while I relieved him so he could go home, shower, wash his clothes, eat, sleep, and say hello to his family. It was a difficult time for everybody that was involved in every aspect of the recovery, but certainly being shorthanded on bomb detection dogs all over the city. The people that worked for me, they really earned their paychecks. And I'm grateful for everybody that worked with us. For well over 2 centuries, the American flag, representing the spirit, values, beliefs, and freedoms of all Americans, has flown over battlefields around the world. On Christmas Day 2006, this American flag was flown over Camp Span, Balkh Province, Afghanistan. What is now Camp Span is situated southwest of Mazar-e-Sharif and was a Taliban stronghold next to Kalijang prison. The very presence of the American flag over the compound demonstrates America's resolve and success in fighting terrorism. With great pride and honor, this flag is presented to Spike Team. Spike Team is an organization which I was running for about 10 years. From the United States Army Special Forces Command and the men of ODA 381 3rd Battalion, 3rd Special Forces Group at Camp Span in remembrance of Johnny Michael Span, the first American casualty of the War on Terror. So this flag flew over Kabul, Afghanistan, and it was on November 24th, 2013, and it was presented to me by the contractors assigned to protect the embassy there, and it was presented to me for providing material support to their organization and their efforts. So I've shown you a couple of awards or signs of gratitude or appreciation. All of that stuff is very cool and I'm proud of it. This particular one is an award I got on the 10th anniversary from the New Life Community United Methodist Church in New Fairfield, Connecticut. The church invited me down there and honored me next to a man who was an NYPD detective who had received, he was the only living recipient of the NYPD's most distinguished honor. I guess it's probably their Medal of Honor. He was the only man ever to receive it twice and live. So It's really incredible to be honored among such people. Aside from all the awards and stuff, the real heroes of 9/11 are the people that I had the great honor to come into contact with. A couple of stories that I remember. They're a little difficult to tell, but I'm gonna try and make an attempt. This map was produced on the 15th of September 2001 by the New York City Fire Department's Phoenix unit. That unit possesses all of the floor plans and architectural plans for every building in New York City. So when an accident or fire or some other event occurs, they have the ability to know what they're working with. These maps were handed out to myself and my personnel for the purposes of keeping track of what was going on around the World Trade Center mission. Building 1 and Building 2 and all these other buildings are buildings that were damaged during the collapse of Building 1 and Building 2. And thousands of families were displaced from their homes. They were given moments to evacuate. They had no choice. So at some point, about 6-7 weeks later, New York City Fire Department and building inspectors decided that they were going to give people that lived down there a few hours on one single day to go and collect any of their personal items, clothing, whatever they needed out of their homes during a specific window during the day. At that time, I was posted at Federal Plaza on Broadway. All the traffic was stopped in the southern part of Manhattan so that these people had the ability to go to their homes and pick up their stuff. Not with their cars, strictly with whatever they could carry. I believe it was about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I looked up Broadway, and there was this massive flow of people marching down Broadway Street. Everybody dragging, duffel bags, rolling luggage. And I stood there in awe, thinking about these people being displaced, many of them with kids. And as I'm standing there, I feel somebody tugging on my shirt. And I look down and there's this little boy and his sister. The little boy was maybe, I don't think he was 5 yet, and the sister was maybe 6 or 7. And the little boy's tugging on my shirt and he says, "Hey, mister, you're my hero." And I said, "You're my hero." Those parents and those kids, knowing that the following day they were only going to have a few hours of their time to go collect their whole life, stayed up the night before and cooked cookies, chocolate chip cookies for me and my fellow rescue workers. And they brought dog biscuits. They hand me a little bag with an American flag pinned to it and dog biscuits for my dog. It was a touching moment. People care. It's the American spirit that is so amazing, above and beyond what I've seen elsewhere in the world. So far above and beyond. It's that caring about other people that makes the enormous difference. No one, anywhere in the world ever, has given to the world as much as the United States of America. And it's not arrogance to say that. And I am proud of it. It's just a fact. The American people are great and giving human beings. And being a giving human being, everything comes back to you tenfold. So, all of my dog handlers, almost all of them former military working dog handlers, were incredibly hardworking and dedicated people. Everybody was working 6 days a week, 16-hour shifts. And I made it my business to go and relieve each and every one of them for 24 hours minimally each week, so that they could go home, see their family, take a shower, wash their clothes, and get back to doing what they were doing. I went to relieve one of my handlers at the Family Assistance Center, which was quite an incredible situation. It was down at the piers on the Hudson River, at Pier 92 and Pier 93, and it's an enormous, enormous building. When you stand on one end and look to the other end, you can't see the end of the building. That's how big it is. They hold fashion shows, runway shows, all kinds of events there. Well, after 9/11, they set this building up to provide every single state, civic organization, every single country, every single religion with their own booth to help assisting families. It was an incredible operation. So one side of the whole building was that, and on the other side of the building was only for the family members of victims. So they had a bunch of porta-johns out in front of the building, and there was one bathroom. Well, two bathrooms, a men's room and a ladies' room, but as far as I was concerned, it was one. The bathroom was about a 300-yard walk, and out on the street, they had put an enormous wall of plywood. It was, I don't know, maybe a mile long, and every single inch of that was covered within days by family members looking for their loved ones. They ran out of space. So there was this 300 yards of wall that they decided they were going to let families post things on. So one day while I'm there, I need to go to the bathroom, and I make the march 300 yards down this, alongside of this wall, and they had that velvet rope. One side of the velvet rope was for family members, everybody else for the other side of the velvet rope. So I'm walking down the outside of the velvet rope, and I see this attractive, middle-aged young woman with 4 kids. The oldest one was maybe 9 or 10, and they're hanging a picture, and they're writing on a wall. And it got to me right here, choked me up, and I went to the bathroom, and on my way back, I stopped, and I see a picture of a guy who, at the time, it could have been me, and his family is posting, "Dear Daddy, please come home. We miss you so much." This is many, many weeks after the buildings had collapsed, and here was this beautiful young family without their loved one, striving to hold on to some little piece of hope. And for the first time during my time at the the World Trade Center mission, I really felt the need that I needed to sit down and decompress. So I went to one of those tents with a pastor, and I sat down and spent about 25 minutes crying, talking, and I walked away somewhat renewed, but definitely changed for the rest of my life. It was many such experiences that I and many other people got to see. I also had the incredible opportunity to meet and work with people from all over the country. Every single person who worked for some federal law enforcement agency had the opportunity to come to New York City and assist. And I made a great many friends and learned a lot about, again, other Americans and how they lived and where they lived. I remember one guy whose kid had been in the Columbine building when the shooting occurred. He was a forest law enforcement for the Forest Service. But I met people from Hawaii and Alaska and every other of the continental United States. It was an incredible experience. And what I learned was two things. I learned that in an event like that, you will see the absolute worst of humanity, and the response from America is the absolute greatest of humanity. And I'm so grateful to be an American. So, after spending an entire year at Ground Zero, I was ready to make a little bit of a change in pace in my life, career-wise. I'd been training people's pets for many years, but a big part of my focus had been in the professional area of dogs, police dogs, drug dogs, and bomb dogs. So shortly after I finished the work at 9/11, I started looking for a new location to do something in a much bigger scale, which would create a better life for people and their pets. And that's when I found Stonehill Kennel in Goshen, Connecticut. It's been a lot of work. It's been a big adventure. Since being here, we have trained dogs from 47 states and 11 other countries. We've met the most interesting people, from the famous, the infamous, all types of celebrities and professional athletes, and thousands and thousands of regular folks. And what you realize is that it doesn't matter what you do for a living or who you are or what your status is financially or professionally. If you love your dog, you love your dog. And there really is nothing compared to having a really well-trained dog, where the lines of communication are just opened up between dog and owner. For me, it's about the most beautiful thing you could ever see. Like everybody else now, I spend some time on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and I love to follow people that do motivational speaking, motivational quotes. And the other day I came across one that was a little bit profound for me. And basically the gist of it was, yeah, but did anybody die? The reason I bring that up is very simply this. I started this speaking to you, telling you that I was having the worst day of my life on 9/11 due to a personal situation. It was something that in my mind was really bad, and like I said, I was probably even feeling sorry for myself. But the moment that plane hit those towers, I realized that my little situation was nothing compared to the situation of the families that lost loved ones. So it's really important that we look beyond ourselves and look at our community, our country. Remember that together we're really strong, we're really great. We can do a lot of great things around the world, and we have. And I pray that we continue to do that. Thanks for listening to my experience. It's now 20 years since that day. It's something that'll be seared in my memory that I'll take to the grave with me. And we learned a lot of lessons. It's almost, I don't know how to describe it. It's just so odd with the so-called ending of the war in Afghanistan now after 20 years. But let's hope it is the end. Only the future can tell us.